If you want to go where the rich and famous hang out in Croatia, then today's podcast is for you. Hvar Island is only an hour by ferry from Split and is one of the most popular islands in Europe. You will hear all about the super yachts, party islands, glamorous beach clubs and restaurants. But it's not all glamour. Hvar has a fascinating history as well, and we take you to the Spanish fort that dominates the old town and has views to die for. Stay listening to the end to hear how and where you can escape the party vibe if you want to and see more of the authentic side of Hvar Island. Hope you enjoy this fun episode, and if you want to see all the pics, honestly, make sure you check out the super yachts at night. Then click on the link to the player you are listening on now to episode 150. Good morning, Lyle. How are you today?
I'm excellent, thanks, Leanne.
That's good. As I said in the intro, we are off to one of the most popular islands in Croatia. Bit of a party island, right?
Probably the most popular, and probably the best known.
Yes, it definitely is. As I said, it's called Hvar.
Hvar, H-V-A-R.
But as we all know, H is silent. Okay. So we left Split, and headed to Hvar. So it's not that far, is it? So you want to give us a little bit of the location and the history of Hvar?
Okay, so basically it's a Croatian island located in the Adriatic Sea, situated just off the Dalmatian coast between the islands of Korčula and Vis.
Mm-hmm.
The island is a 42-mile long and has a very large limestone and dolomite ridge that runs across it. The hillsides are made up of olive groves, vineyards, and pine forests.
Yeah,
now, how did we get there?
Yeah.
Well, we went by ferry. What did you think?
Oh, I love the ferry. And it was just down from our apartment, like where we got off the bus, basically. Like it was right opposite that. And we lined up, we hopped on, and there's these big comfy seats. They're padded. There's a bar.
Leather.
Yeah. Okay. And there was just like, that was bigger than any bus or airline. Seats. It was so comfy. The only thing that was a bit weird was, the way they put the luggage on, but they do it every day, and they just take everyone's luggage and, they put it in where if you're going to this island and that island, and at the end you've got to have a bit of a shit fight to find your luggage, which we did when we got there.
The second time we did it, the first time was pretty good.
Yeah. But other than that, it was great, and there was a bar.
There was a bar, and they're air conditioned.
Glides, that's right, it was air con.
And it was as flat as flat.
It glides through the water. It was
So that's the one we took was only 55 minutes from Split.
It's called the KP line, and it didn't take us long. It didn't even take an hour, did it?
55 minutes, but it can take up to a couple of hours. I think it just depends on
which line.
Actually, 2 hours 25 minutes.
Okay.
Depends on the weather and the operator. Yeah. So obviously some of the places
they go to other places first and go back around the islands.
Now the same ferry from Dubrovnik to Hvar is 4 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. So look, I thought it was great, and actually when you get to the terminal, it's pretty well sign written which companies are where, also
it's really easy. At Hvar, you're right there, like right in the middle of the everything, port, marina, the town. You don't have to go very far.
No, that's right. Well, our actual apartment was very, very close to where the terminal was. In fact, it was the first set of stairs when you turned right. So tell us about the stairs.
So people, I think, are a bit sick of our stairs, Lyle. So there was a lot of stairs.
How many stairs were there? There was 130.
Okay.
But fortunately, Leanne had spoken to the guy before we landed, and him and his mate, he had a mate that we had to sling a few euro, and they carried our bags up.
Yeah.
Look, we couldn't have done it. No, we couldn't have. But anyway, what do you think of the apartment?
I was going to say it was worth it because the apartment was huge. It was 2-bedroom. It had a full kitchen, sort of lounge area, which was separate from the bedroom. And two of my most favourite things when we were on holidays, one, it has a balcony with a view.
And it was a sizable balcony.
It was a great balcony with a little table.
We had plenty of room to hang out our washing.
Yeah, that was great. The view was amazing back over other islands, and it had a washing machine. And it actually had 2 toilets, like it was set, like a bathroom and 2 toilets.
And it was 2 bedrooms, so which meant that the suitcases were in 1 bedroom. And
it was great. Yeah, the apartment was brilliant.
I'd say the view from that apartment was as good as it gets.
I'll have to put the link in the show notes. Speaking of show notes, this is episode 115. So we're going to tell you about some beautiful things on the island of Hvar. And if you want to check them out, go to the link in the player you're listening to this on now, and there'll be a link straight to all that information with the photos and maps and that sort of thing. So there's a bit of history though, and you know, everyone loves his history, and Hvar, because of its situation, obviously was obviously a sought after sort of area. So do you want to give us a little bit of the history, please?
Of course.
Of course.
Because of the location of the island in the centre of the Adriatic Sea, it has been a very important military location for numerous empires, as the owner of the island could control trade in the Adriatic. The ancient Greek civilization was the first major civilization to claim control of the island. Eventually, Greek civilization collapsed and the island changed hands several times. The Venetians, those pesky Venetians again, used to have a major naval base on the island when it was at the height of its powers. The Ottoman Empire also claimed control of the island for several hundred years, and there were a few rebellions during that time. The island was also claimed by Napoleon, but after the fall of Napoleon, the island was claimed by the Austrians. Eventually, the Austrian Empire started to fade, and Croatia claimed control of the island when it regained its sovereignty. Okay. So I thought that was quite short.
Yeah, it was. It's great. The Venetians, they're everywhere, aren't they?
Yeah.
So, wow. Yeah, so it is in such a good spot. And as we said, when we arrived, we went straight to our apartment and dropped our bags, and we were only there for 3 nights, so we wanted to see as much as we could, didn't we? It's not a big area, this main part of Hvar. It's the old sort of town, port, marina area, is it?
Well, they call it Hvar town. So there's 2 main bits to it. There's Hvar town, and then there's Starigrad, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And Starigrad actually means old town. Yeah. So that was the original town.
Sure.
So the population's only about 10,700. So there's not that many people that actually live there.
Is this in the city of Hvar?
Basically.
Oh, the island.
The island, okay, Hvar, yeah.
So the main sort of area, and we're probably going to talk about this in a minute as well, but the first thing you notice when you get there are the boats, the super yachts, and all the other boats that obviously anchor there overnight, like the South Croatia boats and those sorts of things as well.
You've got the ferries, then you've got the local tour boats, then you've got the fishing boats.
You've got the water taxis, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So it's pretty, it's just water boats everywhere, isn't it?
And see, our view from the apartment basically was a view of the Pakleni Islands. Mm-hmm. I hope that's how it's pronounced, but I think it's Pakleni. And that's a group of about 20 islands, and that's where all the tours go out. You know, from Hvar, all the tour boats go out to those islands and that sort of thing, and they're all very protected.
You can also, we walked around. We were going to go and do a day trip to the Blue Cave, and the guy said not today or tomorrow, and we only had those 2 days left. He said because of the tides and the water conditions, it was too rough. So if you haven't seen that from somewhere else, you can do it from there. But so they do, as you said, those island tours, but there's all sorts of fishing tours, party tours, boat tours, day tours, all that stuff. Like you can get out in the water, and they've got those little booths, sort of little shops around the marina a little bit as well, haven't they?
Yeah. So, and that guy, actually, the guy for the Blue Caves, he actually said, really,
it's too far.
That's too far to go, which we were sort of taken aback by.
Well, I asked did he do a half-day tour, and he explained to me, that's just
it's about 4 hours away, he said.
The other thing that's right there on the water are bars and restaurants all the way along as you walk down towards the main square of town. So you've got the boats, you've got this promenade, and then you've got restaurant after restaurant after restaurant, and then you come to the main square of town, don't you?
Yeah, the main square is the biggest plaza in
Dalmatia.
So I'll just give you the deal. All streets will lead you to the Hvar Square.
So even if you're going up over the hills or around, they all end up at this main square where there's a big church.
The centre of the city's public and social life, and the largest square in Dalmatia. I was right. The eastern side of the square is surrounded by the Cathedral of St. Stephen that was built on the foundations of an earlier Christian church from the 6th century, and that acquired its present appearance in the 16th and 17th century and was formed. So the actual square itself, it was formed by filling in an inlet that once reached out to the bay.
Okay.
So that's all that, and it's bloody huge.
We were sitting there one day, it was about 7:30 because I've got a story. So that's another place you can go and see what we're talking about, because like later I'm going to tell you about something we saw at night time. But we were sitting at 7:30 at a restaurant. I remember there's a view with a glass of wine, and then the bells start to ring, and all these families, and especially kids, are running around playing football, soccer, and the parents are sitting around around the church, and it's just obviously where the locals come to hang out as well.
And it's obvious that all the locals know each other. Like they're chatting, and as people are walking past the locals, they're talking to the restaurant owners and the cafe owners. And
well, there's many restaurants and bars in this area as well.
Yeah, and the rest of the square is basically full of old Renaissance Venetian architecture. So it's beautiful. It's got the different pastel colours.
Yeah.
There was a 2-story supermarket in that area as well, just so the our listeners are aware of that.
And so if you want to get your own bits and pieces like we did for breakfast and cups of tea and that sort of thing, there's that little supermarket. There's also a bakery right there as well, which you bought some sandwiches and things for lunch sometimes, because all the restaurants are basically out in the square as well with the big umbrellas and things. So it's pretty nice to sit there.
But I do remember you really, really enjoyed the alleyways of the main square. And there's just restaurant after restaurant after restaurant.
There is, and I've got lovely pictures of those. But there's that bar, that really fancy bar that basically is the gateway to the old city, remember? Very fancy. We sat there and had a few drinks as well. So it's very upmarket and very
glamorous.
Very glamorous, yes, that's for sure. A lot of people only do it as a day trip, and that's probably mostly what they'd see. But, if you can get a few days there, I'd certainly recommend it. And all we've done is hop off the ferry where we are, walk probably 200 metres to find this main square area. And there's beautiful little artisan shops too. I've got some nice sort of pictures of the decorations on these shops, in these alleyways as well. And lots of steep sort of little stairways, and where you can get lost and just enjoy looking at all that, the beautiful architecture. And it's very pretty.
Well, this I remember the guy that looked after us when we first arrived, and I think he was talking about Michael Jordan's yacht. So. And how that was only there earlier in the year. And
well, that island that you talked about, the Pakleni Islands. Now, there's a taxi to them that goes all day and basically all night, because on one of those islands, it was started by. Now, we did hear this story, and I hope I get this right. It was started by someone local, and they started a nightclub disco on the island, and it just became so well known, and he was making so much money, and people still go there. But all of a sudden, someone turns up who's like, actually, I want to run this. So he paid him off a little bit, and it was being run by the Russian mafia. Who knows if it still is? And that goes all night. And we could only just sort of see the lights from it where we are. You can't hear it. But a lot of people go to Hvar for the nightlife.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
And the reason why it's so popular is because it attracts a lot of famous celebrities.
Well, and sometimes people, like you were talking about Michael Jordan, they just say, I'm booking it out for the whole night sort of thing. So, and they come on their $1 billion yachts and they do that. The guy who owned our apartment, he was rattling off the names of the people who you just see down at the harbour, and such comes in on their yacht and that sort of thing.
And so that's why you said, and that's what I was leading to. So that's why you'd find the restaurants and the cafes are so well decorated and so beautiful, because that's what they're catering for. Yeah. But in saying that, we had some meals in some of the restaurants, and they were a bit dearer than we'd had in Croatia, but not over the top.
No, they weren't over the top. So let's talk about the yachts. I was going to come to that later, but let's do it now because we've been mentioning it. This was the place that I think we saw most yachts all together. There's some other places where we saw them anchored up, which come up in future podcasts. But can you believe there was, let's say, 20, like one after the other, and they're backing in next to each other. I've got some photos of these, and they look spectacular in the day, and you'll see all the South Croatia boats come in and people on off. But at night, they just all come into harbour, they back on in, and they light up the whole bay with their under ship lights and all on the top. And it's the most stunning thing you're going to see. You know, there was one that was, I can't remember what it's called, but it had the casino on it, and you can actually Google
Casino Royale.
That's it. It was Casino Royale, yeah. And you can Google these boats, and you can find out how much if they've been for sale, how much they sold for, how much they rent for. A lot of them are rentals, but others, you're just blown away by how much people have paid for these.
But as you said, like, you go there during the day and you're blown away, but you go back at night and it is the most extraordinary thing you've ever seen. Yeah. And then, of course, these private, super yachts, they've got their own security at the entrance to get, or the gangplank to get on those yachts.
Yeah.
And they're all dressed up in their uniforms.
Yeah.
It's very, very Europe, isn't it? It just blew us away.
Yeah, loved it. It was very, very schmick. And one of the other things you can see at night, which I really liked, and once again, I've got photos of these super yachts sitting on the harbour at sunset with the underwater lights. But then when you look down past them and you sort of look up the hill from the old town, right on top of the hill is lit up the Spanish fort, it's called.
Yep.
And it sort of dominates the whole landscape. Daytime it looks impressive once again, but at nighttime it's incredible. So we decided we had to go and see the fort.
Yep.
And because of my my bit of a dicky hip, I didn't know if I wanted to walk up all those stairs and
well, there was 200 steps, so
we got a taxi, which would, they told us would be €20, and we walked back down. But the first thing when we got up there,
I don't think but when you say €20, I think we're in the actual inside the cab for about 3 minutes.
Oh, I know, but that's what they told us it was, and that's what it was. So, and we were prepared to pay that. But you're going to give some history on it, but I don't think we saw a better view in all of Croatia while we were there.
Sure,
it was just, that's probably a big call, but it was I was just blown away because you're looking down from these big fort where the cannons are and everything, and you can see all the old buildings on the hillside in the old town, and then you can see the harbour where all the super yachts are. You can see the main square, and you can see the islands in the distance, and you can see around the other side of that harbour. It is absolutely spectacular, and you've got to go and check out those photos because I put so many there, but you need to so click on the link in the podcast player you're listening on now to episode 115 to check those out. And if you want to see the video, Beach Travel Wine, Instagram, go up the top to the stories and click on Hvar because you won't be sorry. But there is some history to the Spanish fort. I obviously didn't take that much notice. I was blown away by the views.
Yes, you're too busy taking photos.
Yes.
But not too busy. You're doing your job.
Well, there's a cafe there too. So that was, we sat there and had a drink, which was pretty cool. Yeah.
So together with the city walls, the fortress forms an imposing stronghold. Its construction began in 1278 when Hvar was under Venetian rule. In 1551, a new fortress was built on the side of the ancient fortification. 20 years later, during the attack by the Turks in 1571, the local residents found shelter and protection within its walls. The building was severely damaged by an explosion in 1579 after a thunderbolt had struck the gunpowder depot. It was not.
You better scare the life out of you, wouldn't
it? Yeah. It was not restored until that much, and it scared them that much. It wasn't restored until the 17th century. The Austrians were the last to add barracks to the building in 1775. Today, the fortress also houses a small museum with amphora collection. Oh, that fascinated me because they're actually all their porcelain jugs, big jugs with the two handles and that, and they were all found on shipwrecks.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really fascinating, and there were stories with that. And as Lan said, there was a great little cafe there, and you could buy very cold beer.
And there's a souvenir shop as well.
Yeah, a souvenir shop. But the part of the fortress, I suppose, is you do see the armory, and then you go down, and it's actually really narrow. You didn't want to come down because it did look a little bit dangerous. But you go down and have a look into to where the jails were, and there's some models in there of what they used to do to their prisoners, and it wasn't very pleasant.
There's all different levels too. On the main level that we're talking about, where the cafe and souvenir shop is, you get amazing views, and then you can sort of wind your way up sort of to the tower, I guess you'd call it, up to the top of that for amazing, even better views. But honestly, it was just spectacular.
Yeah, and then we actually walked down. Look, it took us probably 20 minutes max.
Yeah, and you've got the city walls as well that go down from the fort. And the track is, we could have walked up except for those first stairs because it's zigzag. And
it's actually terraced too. There's terrace garden areas part of it.
There's a little church and a few other sort of old ruins that you can see on the way down. So it was certainly worth the walk. I really enjoyed that walk back down. And the whole way you're getting different views as well down over the different parts of town and the sea. But apparently the best time is sunset.
Yep.
Yeah, we didn't do that.
Which makes sense.
I can imagine it's just beautiful. There were buses up there when we went, but it wasn't crowded, so I'm not sure where those people off the buses had gone to. So yeah.
Yeah, and just for our listeners' information, we did talk to the taxi driver about touring the rest of the island, and basically he said it was €60 an hour.
That's what he told us.
You can get over to Starry Grad. You can use electric bikes, and there also is a local bus.
Right. The next day we headed to walk around the harbour to the other side. Now, on your way, you pass some very, very upmarket 5+ star hotels, don't you? And these are the hotels that when the ferries come in, they arrive with their golf buggies, and they take anyone who's arriving on the ferry to go to their hotel. All their luggage is whisked away, and then there's another one comes and whisks them away. And there's one that's called the Elizabeth, is it?
Yeah, Palace Elizabeth.
Yeah.
So obviously Queen Elizabeth. It's named after Queen Elizabeth.
So that's sort of on just around from the main square. And there's another one that starts with A, was there?
Amphora Grand Beach Resort.
Yeah, so
and
that's
seriously. We never see. We were walking along the pathway, and it just hits you, and it's like this huge pool, and it's got this infinity level, and that infinity level obviously is designed to look like a waterfall. And we've just gone,
Didn't you say it's the biggest infinity pool in Croatia or something?
Yeah. I think it might even be in the world.
Just the walk around there, it's probably, I think it's about 1.5 kilometres from where we were staying. So that's all the way around the main port area, you sort of go around another sort of bay area, and the whole thing's beautiful and flat and wide, and the views the whole way are spectacular. And then you come to that next area where that hotel we're talking about, and then I think it was your favourite place on the island was that beach club.
Yeah, the Hvar Beach Club, which was established in 1927.
And it's got the wooden
deck chairs and it's got the
flowing white canopies and
what do they call it? Gazebos.
Cabanas.
It looked unbelievable. And that's not the only one. There's about 3 or 4 of them that are right on the shoreline. And they've got their own private beaches. Through there, you've got the speakers, the music's pumping out, whatever time of day it is, and it's just so sophisticated.
And we
didn't belong there, but anyway.
Well, we went and hired a couple of chairs, and then there's restaurants sort of around that people coming around asking you, giving you menus and cocktail lists and things like that. So
that resort, they actually have a bar there. And then remember there was a bar a little bit further along.
Yeah,
and
those were the ones.
The Soul Bar.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you could actually hire the sun lounges, which we did. I think they were only €15
it wasn't a lot.
Each. It wasn't a real lot. But then there was a long further where that beach club was, they had the cushioned.
Yeah.
And I think they had like little dressing rooms as well. Like they looked really flash.
They did. But the water was beautiful. I got in there and had a couple of swims.
It's a bit untidy that you went in and I didn't.
You didn't.
That's true. But I did finish my book.
No, that's good. But it was a great spot to hang out and see how the rich and famous live when they go to a bar. And I guess if we went back, I did love our view in our apartment, but I'd probably want to go to one of those hotels if I could afford it.
Oh, yeah.
Just 'cause you could
I
sit
reckon
by the
probably
pool
the Palace Elizabeth. I reckon that'd be a bit of us.
Oh.
And then we'd sort of go down and hit the Soul Bar and the and Hvar Beach Club.
Yeah, and get ourselves invited onto one of the
we'd
go
go
to the
right
Casino Royale.
Yeah, we go and talk to people because no one minds because we're that old. They think we're harmless.
They do think we're harmless,
and we'd be having a pina colada together.
All right, let's move on because it's not. I mean, obviously, this is upmarket, stunning, glamorous. It's where all the rich and famous go. It's one of the most popular spots in Croatia, and we did love it. But there are a couple of other areas on the island that are worth visiting. And as you alluded to before, there's another town called Starigrad. And a lot of people ask about staying there because it's a little bit quieter and probably not quite as nightlifey, and it's not that far from Hvar.
No, it's only 20k.
Okay,
so a taxi's going to cost you between 40 and 55
dollars, Australian dollars.
Yeah, and as I said earlier, you can get electric bikes, and there is a local bus. There is no ferry service.
No.
From
Hvar to Starigrad.
Yeah. Although there are ferry services from Split to Starigrad. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so it's a quieter option, and it's more rural. There's a lot of farm areas, isn't it? Like that Aura farm sort of area where it's all broken up into equal plots and with the stone walls.
Yeah. So the Aura farm in Starigrad is such an impressive preserved testament to the ancient Greek period that it was added to the list of UNESCO World Heritage Sites in 2008. In the heart of Aura stands one of the few buildings in the plain. It's called Pharos. And it's called Pharos because Pharos was the original Greek name for Hvar. Ancient Greeks arrived on the island 4 centuries before Christ. There were 73 totally equal lots to give the 73 families that arrived with equal land to farm. They made the division with stone walls, which are still intact today, which is basically what I was
saying. So in those fields, they have lavender, they have olive trees, they have vegetable patches.
Lavender farms, they they cook their own bread.
Yeah.
They do cheeses, salami, anchovies, and they do wine.
Yeah,
and they also that particular has its only has a restaurant, and they do group bookings.
Okay,
and they do the traditional bell cooking.
So it's much more of a local experience. And eating the food that's grown.
And everything's organic.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. And look, I did go through and have a look at some reviews on this particular property, and the reviews were fabulous. I mean, seriously good. So,
and you can do a couple of wine tours. Like they've got the 3 main wines, the Possip.
Yep.
And the Plavic Mali.
Yep.
And also they do a rosé.
Yep.
Yeah. So you can try all the local wines, do a wine tour, which is the sort of thing we love to do, and you can buy those local wines on the island as well.
We didn't do it this time because we only had the 3 days and we'll just be busy doing everything else. But again, I looked at the reviews on the wine as well, and they were fabulous too.
So there's sort of 2 areas. What we're saying is like Hvar, where we were, not Hvar, where we were, is upmarket, glamorous restaurants, hotels, party, the super yachts, and then there's a bit more of a local experience in Starigrad, which is only 20 kilometres away, which is the local foods and the farms and the original stone walls and the wines and things like that. So if you've got a couple of days, you can check out both. For sure.
One of the highlights is a walk along the Palm Line River, which is RIVA, which is promenade,
the same
basically.
as in Split.
Yep, is the perfect starting point to this ancient town.
This is in Starigrad.
Starigrad is one of the very early towns in Croatia, and
it's got a lovely promenade, as you're saying.
So it's lined with century-old Venetian Renaissance buildings, alfresco bars and restaurants, colourful souvenir stalls, ice cream stands, and fishing boat. It's the perfect place to stroll along just before sunset again.
It looks a little bit like Split, but it just seems a little bit more laid back than Hvar.
Well, one of the things that they do say, you will certainly notice the difference in the prices between Starigrad and also Hvar. So, I mean, it's not far. So if you wanted to do it probably on a cheaper bit, Hvar. You'd stay there
and do
and
day
then
trips.
just do day trips
Now,
to
look,
Hvar.
a lot of people just do a day trip, which includes going to Hvar, and we had some friends do that. And you basically just drop there for lunch, and off that's all you get to see. I certainly would recommend that you have a few days here. Around where we stay, which wasn't where all the glamorous accommodation was, there are a couple of places that were down low on the water that I think if you did your research, you could find somewhere that you don't have to climb up too many stairs and it's not too busy if that's what you want to do as well. That's it. And nothing is that far that you can't walk in.
Oh, that's very, very small.
Yeah, really small and easy access around the harbour area there. You just could wander around there. It's just lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, and look, at plenty of beaches.
And plenty of places to find somewhere to have a glass of wine and a nice cold beer and just take in all the rich and famous around you. It's great for watching, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That was one of my favourite things was actually, like, favourite place to have a wine. I'm going to go first was sitting there having a glass of wine right on the harbour, watching those super yachts at night. It was just incredible.
Yeah, it was really good. I'd probably go having a glass in the square, St Stephen's Square.
Oh, yeah.
I really enjoyed that, watching the local kids playing the football
nice.
and having the St Stephen's Cathedral on the background.
But then there's also the balcony, which is pretty nice. Yeah, the view from
there is. Yeah, that was pretty good, and
from the Spanish Fort as well.
Yeah, and the Spanish Fort, and you're going to wonder why it's called the Spanish Fort, aren't you? You're not really, I know, but I know because I read this sort of stuff, and it was because the engineers that rebuilt it were Spanish.
Oh, there you go.
So that's why
Spanish Fort. Fair enough. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this. It's a bit of a shorter podcast, but as in jam-packed for 3 days we were there, and that's probably enough time. We probably could have had another day and gone and did a bit more sort of stuff over Starry Grad Way. However, next week we're back with the big guns. Yeah, so episode 116 we're in Dubrovnik. So
oh man,
got some work to do for that one.
What a wow.
Yeah, that was a wow, that's for sure. Yeah, we're going to feel like you're in a movie, aren't you?
It was incredible.
Right. So until next week, we will, I'll see you then.
So adios, amigos.
Bye-bye.